My addiction has left me. An LSD trip report by Pascal, posted at earwid.org April 19th, 2006. I'm 19 now, and I'm a law student. I come from Germany, and I live there again now. But when I was 17, I went to university in London for a year, and there I got very badly hooked on cocaine. I basically was bang on it for about 8 months before I stopped it. I was doing a gram per day, every day, more on weekends, and I was doing other drugs as well. Ketamine, ecstasy, and speed mainly. Cocaine, in my opinion, is the most intelligent drug there is, because you will never realise that you are actually addicted to it. I was totally convinced that I did not have a problem with it at all. I was very logical, giving other people advice on their life, and I was always the first when it came to helping others. But I didn't realise that I was a complete mess myself. The drug tricked me into believing that I did not have a problem. When I compare it to any other drug, I see the difference. With alcohol, when I drink, I feel that I get drunk, and when I drink loads, I am very drunk, and at some moment I reach a point when I am wasted and puke. And I know that you have overdone it, and probably will stop drinking more. When I take ecstasy pills, I will drop a few, maybe a few more. I'll be buzzing, but at some point I'll be buzzing so hard, or I'll mong out as the evening goes on, that I know that you don't do any more pills, because they won't have any effect anyway. Same with weed. There's only so much I can smoke, and at some point I'll be lean and stoned and will have had enough of it. So there is a saturation that happens with these. Well, this did not happen with cocaine. When I take cocaine, I feel good, I get a kind of buzz, but I can't really tell what it is that makes me feel good. The buzz is subtle and I don't actually feel the buzz as much as I might have expected. I think, oh, it's not actually that strong. And this is where the drug's intelligence comes in. Because the buzz is not that overpowering, I can do more. In fact, I will want to do more because I think I can increase the buzz even more. I want the buzz to be 100%. But as you do another line, yes, maybe the buzz is 100%, but the drug increases my expectations upwards so that again I don't feel 100% buzzing. I kinda want more. I want to increase the buzz to 110%, for example. And this is the difference. I will never reach a limit where I know, enough, no more of this. At the beginning when I had coke sessions, my body put a limit to it as my nose blocks and it's hard to snort more. But when I get used to it, my nose will stop giving me too much hassle after a while, or I will just get used to it. So in fact, there is no way of me realising that I've done enough coke, or gone over the top, because my brain gets tricked by it. I could swear I was okay, just like I can swear now I'm typing on my PC. Now, after this rather lengthy introduction, which is as long because it is important for me to realise the way that coke works and because it shows that some addicts have very, very little chance to get out of it by motivation alone as we are controlled by the drug, I'll come to the part how LSD has saved me out of this heavy cocaine addiction. I went to a psychedelic trance rave in London. Psytrance is acid music. It is trance music with a different beat pattern, a very atmospheric feel to it and a lot of twisted and trippy sounds. Plus a psytrance song is built like an acid trip. It doesn't follow the usual pattern of intro, breakdown, drop, main part, breakdown, drop, lead out like normal electronic dance music. But it starts somewhere, evolves, changes, the melodies keep changing, the sounds change, and it takes you on a journey and you don't know what to expect next. And it ends at a point where it makes sense, and the story of the song is finished. If you're interested, I suggest to listen to the tracks by the group Infected Mushroom. So anyway, I went to this psytrance rave, and I didn't know anyone there because my mates are not into this kind of music, and I was impressed by the atmosphere there. Everyone was so friendly, open, and quite obviously many were on acid or shrooms. They were even selling mushroom tea. It was a nice setting. I dropped a pill or two, and I went dancing in the main arena. The lasers and lights were amazing, and the music was banging and intriguing all the same. I was dancing next to some young guy with his girlfriend, and I got talking to them. I subsequently found out that he had acid, and I had done it before, and I wanted some in the moment. Little did I know how strong his stuff really was. He put a drop on my hand, and I licked it off. I continued dancing, and remembered that the last acid I had had wasn't actually that strong. So after about 20 minutes, I asked him for more, and took yet another drop. I was enjoying the rave loads, but apart from a few little colour changes, the acid didn't seem to have much effect on me, even after 1.5 hours. I went to sit down in the chill out room, and there was a nice light in there. It was a very warm atmosphere. I was now seeing a few more colour things, and I realised the acid probably was doing its job. Suddenly, some guy that I'd never seen before appeared from nowhere and sat down in front of me on the floor. He pointed a finger at me and shouted, "Pascal!" I got a weird feeling creeping up on me. It felt quite weird, and my skin was tickling. I couldn't believe there was a guy there who knew my name. Baffled, I asked, "What?" "Pascal!" he said again, in a very sharp voice. He was about my age, and he had dark hair like me, a bit skinny. In fact, he looked a bit similar to me, I suppose. I noticed that he was very edgy, kind of moving his body in an edgy way while talking to me, and he frequently touched his nose too, like someone who had just done a big line of coke would. In fact, he was quite aggressive even in his way. He was looking me directly in the eyes, with brown eyes like me. "What the... How do you know my name?" I said to him. I was very intrigued, and I wasn't sure where this was going. His answer made me shiver. "Well, Pascal, I know a lot about you. In fact, I know everything about you." He had an evil look and a slight grin at the same time, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. He continued, "I'm a hallucination. Yeah, Pascal, I'm part of your brain. I'm part of you. I'm inside you. Only you can see me." I was scared, but I didn't want to show it. I tried to remain on top of the situation. I tried to be clever, and with the firmest voice I could put up with, I asked him, "Well, if you say you are part of me and only in my brain, then what's your name?" And his answer was, and I will never forget the way he said it, "My name is Charlie." Now, how did you know that, Pascal? Charlie, for those of you that come from different parts of the world, is a common English name for cocaine. I was staring at him. I couldn't say anything else. My whole body felt weird and buzzing, and I felt so weak at the same time and scared. And then he said something which was incredible. "Now tell me to fuck off, Pascal. Tell me to go away, and I will go away." I think I managed to stumble a weak, "Go away." He grinned at me in an evil way, got up and left through the door as quickly as he'd come. I sat back down, and it hit me instantly that I had a problem with cocaine. That cocaine was in my brain and was controlling my life. I kept thinking that and panicked even more, and realised that I was not in control, that something was happening with me that I could not control at all. I couldn't take it anymore, and I knew I had to get out of this room. I looked up and around me, and it was all weird. I couldn't hear any music, and the light seemed kind of pale. It was bright but dark at the same time, and I could not see any faces at all. It seemed to me like people were looking the other way, and in fact, when I actually looked at someone, the head turned the other way, as if I was someone that they don't want anything to do with. I got up and hectically walked around in the chill-out room, looking at the people, thinking, what the freak is going on here? But everywhere I was passing by, I could hear people whispering about me. "Pascal's losing it. Pascal's going crazy. Pascal's changing personality. Pascal, Pascal, Pascal." Oh my god. I panicked and ran into the corridor and downstairs to the front entrance of the club, where things were looking a bit more normal again, but I was still tripping hard and panicking. I ran up to a bouncer and begged him to put me into a safe taxi. It was in one of the roughest areas in London, so I could get home. When I was in the taxi and the surroundings had changed, I was kinda okay, and another phase of the trip had begun. I was seeing nice colours, and the road, which was kinda wet, was looking awesome, as if diamonds were all over it. When I arrived home, my friends were there, and I was actually okay. In fact, the second part of the trip was well nice. It was on that evening that I realised that I was addicted to cocaine, and that it was controlling my life. That evening, it was my subconsciousness telling me and showing me what is going on inside me, even warning me. I realised to the core how much Charlie was messing with me, and how intelligent it was, and it was a big experience to me admitting that something had managed to control my life like that. And for the very first time in my life, I had to actually admit defeat to something. It was cocaine 1, Pascal 0. Realising that was the first and most important step towards stopping taking it, and I owed that to LSD. It opened my eyes in a sense. I did not stop taking coke instantly, but whenever I did a line after that, I knew that I was fueling Charlie. I did, however, make the decision to move back to Germany, out of the druggy surroundings that I was living with in London. Clubs, friends, and dealers. I did move back to Germany about a month later, and I actually stopped taking coke. I'm so glad that LSD actually helped me out with that. It's quite ironic actually that one drug helps you come off another, lol. I know I've talked a lot about cocaine and little about LSD in this post, but it is the essence of my encounter. However, there is something about this that I want to say, and about the way I see LSD. My LSD trip was amazing because there's something very philosophical to it. I take a drop of liquid, and when I do it, I'm still in reality. Let's just leave the term like that, I don't want to go too far. But the trip actually starts the very second that I take the drop. However, I don't feel it. It can vary how fast I start feeling it, usually after half an hour till 2 hours after I dropped it. So I'm still in reality. Everything is normal. I feel normal, I see things normal. But slowly, very slowly, I enter another world. I see small shadows where there aren't supposed to be any. I see small movements where there shouldn't be any. And as the trip goes on, and I look around myself, I'll find that there is nothing that really stands still. Everything seems to be active. Be it subtle colour changes, shadows, anything. A plain white wall could appear like there is liquid on it or something. It's really hard to describe. But as all these things came about very, very smoothly, I don't realise the transition from normal to trippy. I forget I am on acid. And now, this is my reality. And then, suddenly, I will see something which does not fit into the image. Something happens which you know cannot be true. Like when I met Charlie. My rational thinking tells me, oh, this isn't possible, this isn't true. But in fact it is possible because you see it. He was there. I could see him and I could hear him talk. He was 100% credible. And this, at that moment, redefines your standards of reality and possible. I know that this cannot happen, but yet it has happened, and as I believe what you see, I increase my horizon and I accept what I see as part of my reality. I am baffled, I am stunned, because I would never have imagined that everything I've been told in life, all standards that have been set and all my logic that I have acquired, is in fact wrong and irrelevant at that moment. And there are things which I didn't think could coexist. I realised that in fact 1 + 1 does not always equal 2, but it can equal 3. And that is amazing. When I see a hallucination like that, which doesn't fit into my thinking pattern, it is really, really important that I accept it, and that I face what I see. I get the chance to deal with it, kind of thing. Sometimes, like in my case, it will be an inner self, something subconscious talking to me. It might scare me, but it is important that I accept what I see, and that I am open to see more. Not trying to be on top of things and to control the trip because, well, I can't. I can play with it when I am more experienced, yes. I can challenge my hallucinations, but only to see where it's going, and not to be stronger than them, because if I do, it can go horribly wrong, just like it nearly did. LSD to me is a very rational drug. That means that anything I see makes sense. This is where the credibility of its hallucinations is based on, and if I see something which seems to threaten me, I need to be strong. I must have a strong personality, and I need to step back and say, hey, how is this actually threatening me? It's there, it's real, yes, but it can't hurt me. I always hear the advice that people give, you have to remember that it's not real and that it's only the drug. I find that to be a bit of a stupid piece of advice, because at that moment it is real, and at that moment I am on the drug. And even if I realise it's the drug that is doing it, it's still there, and I'm still controlled by it. So, the best way to trip is to be open for what is coming to me, and to be prepared for something amazing. Let go of the ego, and let the drug take me on a journey, on a trip. At the end of the trip, however, I have always experienced the same feeling. I arrive at a point where I realise the trip is over, and it all makes sense. Anything I have seen on the trip is gone, but it actually made sense, and it was all part of it, and it was necessary for me to see it. Every person has different trips, and they're all made for each individual. And at the end, it will always make sense. I'll feel good most of the time. And even if it was a horror trip, I will admit that what I saw was all part of it, and belonged there. It is like a trip that made on holidays. I leave my home or whatever, I travel somewhere, I see things, meet people, do things. It moves on. And when you arrive back at home, it's like you have been round in a circle. I arrived where I started, and it all worked out. This report took me aback a bit because I actually had a bit of a moment reading it, because this guy's experience, I've not actually experienced it, actually confronting your like addiction demon. When you experience like your subconscious projected, let's frame it in that manner, you witness your fear and subconscious projected in a trip. It is almost like meeting a demon, a demonic entity that possesses you, because in a sense your addiction possesses you. I very much relate to that idea of being possessed, even though I know obviously the reason I got addicted to ketamine personally is because I ended up getting addicted myself by using it and abusing it too much and escaping into it to escape trauma and self-reflection and yeah, just escapism. And quickly, when it becomes a destructive habit and that one that you can't shake off and that's actually destroying your life, but you can't help but come back to it, it is like almost being possessed. It's like something else is puppeteering you. It doesn't feel like you, because there's the inner, well, not the inner, like sort of the higher you who wants to stop it and move on, and you know you need to just stop doing it to move on and vanquish this aspect of yourself. So in a sense you're being possessed by like your lower self in a sense. But getting back to the actual experience that he had, I've often thought, oh shit, I think if I took like a serious to high dose of a psychedelic or something, I mean this guy was on 2 ecstasy pills as well, which he didn't actually like fully factor in. He says 2 pills, so I'm assuming they're ecstasy. So he had a mad candy flip here, and what's interesting about MDMA, right, at least for myself, and I bet some other people can vouch for this, is that it gets to a certain point during the higher doses of MDMA where it actually, I believe it metabolizes into MDA, which is more hallucinogenic. You can actually experience very upfront, blunt hallucinations, like literally seeing someone in front of you. But on top of being dosed with LSD, I imagine the hallucinations got even trippier and deepened to the point where it was almost like experiencing something that somebody does on like Datura or Delirium. Not saying like you go into like some delirium headspace at all, but I just think your mind gets so warped from the drugs and becomes more open to breaking down the limits of physical reality, that it can actually like project its subconscious, like its subconscious fears, such as your cocaine addiction. It's basically projecting your shadow, isn't it? And it takes the form of an entity, like another person or a being. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting how visceral it was, that it was literally called Charlie. It was like a very twisted sort of like trickstery type entity behavior, but it's also like some people would probably get maybe perhaps a bit lost on this and be like, oh, it was literally a demon, he was possessed by a demon. And it's like, okay, maybe that's true, it could be true, but regardless of all the fluffy content of like what's actually going on with consciousness, blah blah blah, the core of the experience that he had was that it was a deep-rooted shadow thing that he was dealing with that was holding his life back. And many times you can be in these like high dose state, it doesn't even have to be a high dose, but just in a psychedelic state where you will experience strange synchronistic sort of like events and people that almost feels like it's your mind speaking back to itself. And sometimes, and oftentimes, there's going to be like elements of fear and just things in your subconscious that you're suppressing, and your shadow self doesn't want to like have a light illuminated upon, because it will literally die. So in a sense, you're like illuminating your shadow by experiencing this entity, and that symbolizes your cocaine addiction that's stemming from your subconscious fears and etc., and your aspirations towards a better life. So there's this tug of war going on in your mind, and then the trip sort of allows it to like be made manifest in front of you, confronting your demon in a sense and vanquishing it with love and understanding and willpower, perseverance, etc. All the nice buzzwords that align with a higher state of being. And yeah, it's really interesting. It took me aback a bit because I was like, bloody hell, it's definitely a demon inside me called Kenny. We will call Kenny, and we call ketamine Kenny up where I live for some reason. So we call it the Ken, like, oh, we're getting on Ken tonight, lads. Don't know where that came from. There's so many different slang terms I've heard for it, like Special K, Kenny, Keswick, Kesotron, Spaghettamine, Spaghetti, Kendrick, fucking so many. I love all slang for drugs, so funny. Obviously Charlie, Charlie is slang for cocaine, but up where we're from, we call it beak, because you're literally sniffing it with your beak, aren't you? Then I've heard it be called toot, then it gets called tackle, and then funny enough, Sedba, which is the weirdest one by far. Shout out to any Chainsaw Mara fans who got that one. But yeah, this was really interesting and definitely quite fascinating for me to actually witness something that I know I could possibly like experience myself, but I'm too wrapped up in the fear. Yeah, it's a serious journey. It's a spiritual journey, sort of going through an addictive episode that can span for quite a long time, and it really is almost like purging your demons in a sense. Personally, I would like to get control of my demons with my own just like sober state of consciousness, because that is in essence the only way to fully defeat it, is to really fully realize that sobriety is the only way to like vanquish the demon. I mean, you could have a psychedelic trip. Quite clearly this guy's psychedelic trip like almost like vanquished it, and it clearly worked. He literally like had a few more lines, realized he didn't like it and it wasn't aligned with his highest values, and then stopped. So the LSD seriously catalyzed it, but then what really solidifies it is the fact that you go sober, isn't it? But it's not to negate the fact that psychedelics can be a really helpful tool for overcoming addiction. Famously, ayahuasca is the one to go to, I guess. And ibogaine for addicts. Many people report using ibogaine and being completely rid of their addiction like overnight, almost like it eliminates it in the brain. Very fascinating stuff that I'd like to cover more. But I hope you got something from this, and I'll see you on the other side.